Well, I have to say it's interesting that in this whole past year, I did early on. I was one of the first people who started talking about this virus back when it was over just in China. I was a big fan of Chris Martenson, who was the first person I know of in the West to start talking about that. But I never did much of talking about the lockdowns. Now that I think about it, I've hardly discussed them. They just, frankly, there was other stuff that, I thought lots of people were talking about lockdowns. Tom Woods has done tremendous work debunking, the whole lockdown hysteria and tyranny. And there were other people who did the same. So I never felt much for a reason to talk about it. There were so many other very compelling topics in the news this year. But I think that now I really should address it because there is over the Super Bowl this weekend. There was a lot of spotlight put on Florida, specifically on Tampa and the surrounding area where I happen to live. I am here on the West Coast, which is generally generally pretty conservative, unlike the East Coast, or I should say, the South Florida, which is on the East Coast. You generally get a lot more of typical, urban, high population density type of vibes from the culture down there, excluding Miami. And in, most of that area, it's like the rest of the country where, there's very heavy masking and, the stores are very strict about it. And I think they even had a mask mandate for quite some time in that part of the state. I don't think they do anymore. There were a lot more restrictions over there, but over here we never really had many restrictions. We had restaurants closed down for a number of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but then that opened back up, and pretty much things have been normal here for this whole time, this whole year, when a lot of people have had their businesses destroyed in many parts of the country, where people have just gotten used to not seeing their family members anymore. You have people like Viva Fry, if you're familiar with his channel. He's a YouTuber up in Canada. His grandmother was 98. She died alone in a nursing home. No one could go see her when she was dying. They wouldn't let anybody see him. That's horrifying and sad. But I mean, it's just, that's something that thankfully I'm fortunate enough to where that's not been my experience here. And we've had a lot of visitors from all around the country. I've been seeing a lot of license plates this week for the Super Bowl. People, even in my town, which I'm pretty far from the stadium, because a lot of people come to visit places around Super Bowl time, even if they don't have tickets. I think, and especially right now because people know that, hey, you come here, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bar. And, I'm kind of happy for them. They came here and they saw, they had a glimpse of what freedom looks like these days. Which is pretty sad that, this is what qualifies as is so much freedom. But, compared to the rest of the country, it is. And I think partially because I've been so fortunate in where I happen to live, and not being affected by all these lockdowns around the country, that's why it really hasn't been that interesting of a story for me. It hasn't really affected me till now. But right now, the lockdowners are coming for me, for my community, and for my entire state. You have people all over, not just over social media, over the the traditional media and such, that are just aghast because of all the spotlights being put on us because of the Super Bowl. People are just beside themselves that we here live normal lives, and I think it to them. That's a sin, and it's a sin that we should be punished for. And I think it's all the more horrible to them that, in fact, we are not. In terms of, the intensity of the virus, things are not worse here than anywhere else. In fact, things are doing pretty good here in terms of the virus, considering how old our population is. We have a lot less people dying from this virus than in other places. It's by no means non-existent here, but you would think that, considering how strict places like New York and California have been, that our experience here in Florida would have been, markedly worse, 2 or 3 times as bad as California or New York, you would think, considering how strong their response has been. But in reality, it really hasn't been. Um, it kind of goes back and forth at different times where the virus is raging, more or less. But generally speaking, we have, well, I shouldn't say generally speaking, in the total summation of this past year, there's really been no benefit to these states that have locked down really hard versus us who have just, decided to lead normal lives. I have a grandmother who's in her 80s and she goes out every day. She doesn't want to stay home. That's just how she is. She's not going to do that. And she's been living her life for the last year, and she hasn't gotten sick and died. People here have made sort of the cost-benefit analysis. They've thought, hey, if I go out, there's a chance that I might encounter somebody who's infected with this virus, and I could get sick. And a lot of people have gotten sick, as you know. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of things that they are willing to chance that for. They're saying, hey, the risk of me catching it one and the risk two of me getting real sick with it is such that I don't want to put my entire life on hold. Sure, am I at an increased risk? Is there some risk when I leave my house? Yes, just like there's risk every time you get in a car. Just like, you have a risk of catching the regular flu and dying. You have a risk of catching tuberculosis. There's risks of a lot of things in life. And yes, over the past year, because of this virus, has there been, somewhat of an added risk? Yes. But at the end of the day, people are willing to take risks to live their lives. That's what it means to live. There's always risk in life. And that's a choice that people have decided to make. Certain people don't like to leave. People here who are retired, for example, who can afford to stay home, they've done that. They don't leave. They just order takeout, or they order delivery food, or they get, they have groceries delivered, and they don't have to work to pay their rent or their mortgage, because they make income off of their retirement, or they have enough saved, and that's fine for them too. And over this past weekend, a whole lot of people decided to go out and celebrate the Super Bowl, and to have some fun, going out to bars and watching the game, or going to the game itself. And I have to say, it's very bothersome. It's annoying. It's it's mildly annoying. I mean, it's not something that's going to ruin my day. But I don't like seeing people angry at us for having a life. I mean, it's just, you have to be a very it takes a very specific kind of person to be angry with other people simply because they're having fun. Because, you could have made an argument back in February or March that, hey, when these people are going out, we don't know how much they're, spreading these things around to other people, and they could get me sick tomorrow, and blah, blah, blah. We just know at this point that that's not really the case. We've seen, we've followed the science. We've looked at data from all these different countries and all these different localities that had all these different levels of restrictions. And, the places that have been really, really strict, they haven't really fared much better than these places that have been not strict at all. I mean, look at countries in Africa that have no power to force people to stay home in their homes. I mean, especially when a lot of people might not even necessarily really have homes that are worth staying in. And guess what? Those places, the virus has kind of gone the same way as it has in these more strict countries, like in Europe or in North America. And I guess the reactions to the Super Bowl are really, it put a lot of this into perspective for me. Because I have not been anywhere. I've not been outside of Florida for this whole past year. I rarely left the state anyway. I haven't been to any, the strictest place that I've been was Broward County back in, like, the summertime, when things were still kind of strict there, in which, you had to wear a mask everywhere you went. But, I mean, restaurants were still open then, I think. Or no, maybe it was just takeout or something like that. Yeah, that's what it was. At that point, they were to just takeout. But I just, it's really hard to relate to these people. And to those who came here as tourists for this weekend, I'm happy for them that they were able to escape the prisons that they currently live in, even if it was only for a couple of days. I'm very happy for people who are able to come here and experience normal life. And, politically speaking, even though this shouldn't be a political issue, it unfortunately is a very, very political issue, I think that it's clear that, the main reason why Florida's become such a target of the media's ire and of the lockdowners, wanting to always rain on our parades, literally in this case, trying to shame people for being happy about the Super Bowl. Which, I mean, again, think about it. If I told you that a year ago, that the media would be shaming football fans for celebrating Super Bowl weekend. That's just how fast things can move in our current politics. I think that a large part of this has to do with trying to poison the well and hurt, our Governor DeSantis. If he in fact decides to run for president in 4 years. But despite what a lot of people in the media would like to think, they think that even DeSantis, pretty well understood, had a very high approval rating coming into 2020, and as far as they're concerned, his response and his lack of being like Andrew Cuomo or Gavin Newsom, him taking the exact opposite response to those governors and saying to people, hey, you should make your own choices, that to them should destroy his career. It should be over for him. He's ruined. He's politically has no future. The reality is quite the opposite. This past year has made him infinitely more popular amongst Republicans across the country, because we here in Florida have, become the shining city on the hill for a lot of these folks who live in what is relatively worse states. There certainly aren't any other sizable states that are as open as Florida is. And that has made DeSantis sort of a hero to anti-lockdowners everywhere. And so I think that the media doesn't understand that when they constantly slam him for being too pro-freedom, that, they're only helping him. They are the ones who have made him as popular as he is now amongst the Republican base. So, this wasn't really a well-organized segment, but I wanted to get down and sort of think out loud for a while and reflect a bit on the events of this weekend and how people are interpreting them. It's easy for me, as someone who is as far on the libertarian spectrum as I am, someone who's a disciple of the likes of Murray Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises and Hans Hermann Hoppe, to really just become bitter with respect to government everywhere. But when I take a step back, I can realize just how much worse things could be. I feel like, even though Florida is not as free as I would like, it is certainly the land of the free amongst the land of the free. And for the media's big attack to be that the place where I live is too free, I can't think of a greater compliment. And so in closing, I hope that maybe after witnessing the events of this weekend and seeing what other than all the cardboard cutouts in the stadium, what a relatively normal human event can look like in this state, it will maybe inspire people across the country to try and stand up to their governments a little more and try and agitate for a state of affairs that's more in line with how we live here. I mean, I think even in some red states, though I haven't checked, there might be places that are still kind of strict, or at least red areas of blue states. Maybe you try doing that, because of course this is a partisan issue. So we sadly, are not. I can't really hope after this weekend that people in blue states are going to start becoming more in favor of freedom. So that's about all I have to say on this matter. If you get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.